just trying to figure out a nice readable font. See if there's something that's a bit wider and bolder. Hello, Retrospector. Spectre says digging the space station. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I didn't actually model this. I grabbed a bunch of like generic science fiction kit pieces off of Turbo Squid, which is this. Anybody who knows about game development is rolling their eyes right now. But Turbo Squid is just like a quick marketplace for like 3D assets. So you can search like space station. Hearing that the mic is relatively quiet, so let's kick the music down. Hopefully that's a bit better. Anyway, you can just like search space station and there's like tons of stuff that people have made available, and you can get like non-commercial licenses or commercial licenses. You can filter by like whatchamacallit, if it's like film quality or game quality. A lot of this stuff is not usable out of the box. Like even like these models, I had to take them into Maya and like do a bunch of cleanup on them to get them working. And I'm still iterating on the materials like in Unreal a bit. You can see when you get like really zoomed in to some of these parts, there's some kind of like really nasty sampling on some of these textures just because of how big I've made it. But this is actually step one of a casino. I'm thinking this is gonna be like a deep space casino where they bet on like the movements of asteroids like it's a giant roulette table. That sounds wild. That's the intention. But for the moment, would you believe there's not a bunch of wild space station casinos available on websites? So we're gonna have to sort of shift gears to actually making some additional models, like modifying this with a bunch of decorations and like try and integrate a bunch of other like gambling elements to it. Sort of like when you go to like in Sonic, you're suddenly in like a casino city or whatever, and it's sort of not explained. That's the magic of video games. Anyway, so like I'm not totally sure what I'm gonna do today. Like, here's the like main ideas, I guess. Anybody who's listening, vote in the chat if there's anything specific you want to see. But like, one idea I have is that Retrospector says, I think Cowboy Bebop's got a space station casino. It might be a good point of reference. Oh yeah. Dude, like, this whole game is just Cowboy Bebop, the video game, so we're already stealing so much from it. Like, one option that I was thinking of is that this jump gate, like, actually opens into, like, a spline section, where you're, like warping. I've actually got some, let me see if I can find them in here, but there was, I think, one of these stylized, was it? One of these scenes, there's like yeah, I've got some like warp effects. They're like, like going into a Pancake Drawer says Star Fox X Armored Core X Cowboy Bebop is kind of the quick pitch. That's right. But yeah, I've got a few of these like warp effects. I wasn't even like going looking for these. These just sort of like came with like a pack of like muzzle flashes, and so I was like, that's pretty cool. So this one looks a bit more like kind of Doctor Who-ish, I guess. This one's kind of a little more anime. I think this one's probably the one that we would use for like you're like traveling at warp speed through like a bunch of jump gates. So that's one option. Is we'll go back to Deep Space. One option is we kind of like extend this jump gate and have like a jump gate section where you're like flying through hyperspace. That will control like a rail shooter. Another option is to go back to our, was it our spline test scene? Yeah, where we were building this kind of like canyon that you fly through, and there's where we left off on this. It was like enemy AI, like making the enemies actually like do interesting movements relative to the spline while you're flying. I can just like zoop. So you can see, like, it's a bit crazy right now. They just make a ring. As you shoot them, they kind of rearrange the ring. I don't know. That one's kind of wild. That one's kind of crazy. Maybe you couldn't even hear what I was saying while they were all shooting. I should take down my Unreal Audio. 10%. So that's like another option. And then the last one is in this city gym last week. We made the Scorpion Dingus. I kind of went in after the stream and got the legs working. Those weren't working at the time that we finished last week. But I'm not super interested right now in like continuing to develop this character specifically, but I do want to make like a bunch of like examples of like big characters, ones that are like maybe even like twice as big as this guy. So like a big daddy long leg spider is like another kind of insect. We can also do more like mecha mechanical things, like a big chicken walker, like Battletech like robot, or like a big sort of like biped guy. Like I really just, in this sort of like demo gym scene that I'm making right now, I just want to like throw out a bunch of ideas and like kind of see what hits, or kind of see what like our narrative designers are interested with, or like perspective level designers might want to like continue playing with. And then we can like yank stuff out of this gym and like develop them into like full scenarios. So yeah, probably because I advertised this stream with the deep space stuff, I might be inclined to work on that like Warpgate section, just so that like it matches the expectations of people who might be coming in like for the first time. But if anybody like really wants to hanker in to see something else, we can do it. Also, I think like the AI for that canyon scene is really code heavy, and I think I just want to do a lot of that coding like offline, because I don't think the programming streams are as interesting. I think the tech art streams like are like sort of more engaging for folks. Retrospector says the warp gate is pretty cool. Yeah. Okay, let's do the warp gate. So we'll go back to deep space. And as always, I think there's like, I think the only limit we have on the chat is that people have to be here, right, for like a few minutes before they can chat. Let me check. Followers off, just to make sure. Yeah, we're not in follower only mode. So yeah. If anybody's waiting to chat or whatever, but like basically like I kind of just like play lo-fi beats and chill while I'm working. If anybody has any questions about like the game itself, or about like just making games, I'm always happy to treat this as like an ask me anything session. And if like I'm just kind of like doing stuff on the stream that seems interesting but you don't understand what you're seeing and you'd like to understand it, you can always just like ask, and like I'll sort of like bounce out and explain it. But yeah, this is Nightshift Galaxy. This is like our like sort of space adventure video game that we're trying to get off the ground. We're currently, the current status of the game is that we're getting ready for GDC, which is a big conference where you can like meet with a bunch of other like potential collaborators or like potential like partners on like the business side. And so we're taking a bunch of meetings there to basically figure out like you know, is this like a funded project? Is this like a self sort of like bootstrapped early access thing? Like depending on how that stuff works out, it'll change like how we plan to develop it. But hopefully after GDC, we'll have like a better view of like what the long-term plan for the project is, and we can like, you know, finally answer everybody's questions like, where's the Steam page, or when is this coming out, or so yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna mute the mic. I've been talking now for like 10 minutes. But yeah, I'm just gonna start making, so like I'll set it up so that I guess you'll like fly. What is the forward direction on this? Oh, this is actually sideways. Okay. But anyway, I'll make it, you fly through here, and then it will take you like, I guess, we'll just set it up that you like fly through just like a kind of some loop-de-loops, and the S-curve I'll just make like a little roller coaster. And then once the movement is working, I'll set up those effects where there's like a bunch of like warp, like Doctor Who stuff coming at you. And then once we like how that looks, we'll see how we're doing on time, and like I may do something similar to this. All these like white dots here, those dots are indicating spawn locations, because this spline is a spawner, and I like hit play, whoa, and then there's a bunch of asteroids. So we might also do a thing where like a bunch of like smaller asteroids or whatever get spawned along the like warp path, just so that as you're going, things are like whizzing by you and you have something to shoot. And that can be sort of like step one of kind of like tickling our brains about like what the gameplay inside a Warpgate might be like. So, cool. Yep. Just jump in the chat if you got any questions. But I'm just going to go into work mode now. Thanks for watching. Also, our cat Status is currently missing. I don't know where the boy is. I think he went to sleep downstairs. Yeah, I might go pester him and bring him up here later, but I guess in the meantime, we'll just put Proto Man in here as a placeholder. Oops. I'm just looking at these lights material on this like jump gate inner ring. I want to see if I can do a texture scroll on it so it looks like they're rotating. This program here, this is called Maya. This is basically like a 3D model and animation Swiss Army knife. Kind of just does everything and it exposes everything. So it's like, usually you get the assets off of like a site called Turbo Squid, and then this is the place where you kind of massage them and get them in the right form for the game before you import them into the game. So this is where I'm just coming in to look at like how these textures are set up. We can look at the UVs. So modeling editors, UV. So you can see the whole jump gate has this whole atlas, and then the geometry of this part is all, yeah, okay, so each of these little, there's like 3 faces on the inside of the wing, and then their UVs are this bow tie shape inside of here. So that's going to be kind of... Retrospector says, out of curiosity, why Maya over Blender? It's because I learned Maya when I went to college like 20 years ago, and I just keep using it. If I was in college now, I would definitely learn Blender. I also should probably just learn Blender anyway, but it's the case that like I know all the hotkeys and I can like be super productive, and I own a license anyway, so I just keep using Maya. But eventually I'll give myself an excuse to learn Blender. There were a few models that I modeled in Blender. I think the modeling is better than in Maya. Like, I think it's more, you don't have to use this like hotbox as much like you do in Maya. There's more just like 2 keystrokes. It reminds me a lot of like editing text with Vim. But on the flip side, I found their like armature system, their way of making skeletons and animating characters, like generally just like less useful than Maya's, because it's like they made it too. It's like they did too many features. Like they made it too complicated in Maya. Bones are like dead stupid. Like you can't get it wrong because like it's just so simple. Whereas armatures in Blender have a lot of like quirks and things, so it's a little tricky. Like a bone is not just like in a game engine. A bone is just like a transform matrix. You know, it's one of these. So a bone is just like you think about manipulating a single transform, whereas like a bone in Blender is actually like two transforms. It's like a pivot and then a point direction, and like the bones sometimes are like head to tip with each other, and sometimes they're floating. I don't know. It's like it's got too many like stipulations and details. It kind of confused me. Anyway, this, I think if we want to be able to scroll, because like what stinks is like I can't just I can grab the UVs here. Like if I tried to do a texture scroll by just moving these UVs, you see what would happen is it would like just get dark. We really need a second copy of these highlights here underneath it. But I think that if I open up the other jump gate, it's actually using that space. I don't think there's space in the texture. Let's see. Here's the outer ring. Yeah, oh man, this sucks. They crammed some stuff underneath here. So like, I can't just do a texture scroll. You know, I suppose what we could do is we could scrunch down these to be like half the size, and then have two of them, and then just also scrunch down the UVs. But I think we'll lose some of this like inner ring detail. That might not be that big a deal because we're more stylized. I think this has too much. This texture sort of has too much detail anyway. But in the meantime, rather than what can I do? Maybe. Would it be that bad if I scrunched them down? I don't know. There's also the possibility that we just put a totally different texture, and this just doesn't share the same texture with the whatchamacallit, with the main ring. I think that's actually better. Let's do that. So here, I'm gonna open up. Oh, I opened up the wrong program. Let's go. I want Affinity 2. Affinity's basically just, it's just Photoshop, but you don't need to pay for a Creative Suite subscription. You can just pay once. You just pay them like $20 and you get it. So it's a bit bad. It's it gets you pretty much all the features you want at a lower price. But it's also like nice, well-maintained commercial software and not just kind of like janky open source stuff. So. Do is file, save as, we'll call this texture inner ring. Now what we can do is I'm going to get rid of everything outside of these two pieces. So invert the selection. delete that stuff. We can add a fill layer. It can just be black. We can move this layer. Oop, nope. What's going on? I just want to move this dingus. Why can't I move you? Oh, it's locked. Is that it? That's why it was locked. Okay. So we can move this up here. This texture doesn't need to be this big anymore, so we can say like resize canvas. We'll just make this 512 by 512. Still some wasted space, but whatever. And then we will just copy. Now it's got this like bow tie shape that I don't love, so what we can try and do is like, yeah, it's fine. We will, here, we're just gonna copy this, move it down. And then behind it, we can add a pixel layer. I'll just fill in with some of this gray. Eyedropper not working. I'm going a little crazy right now. Also, this guy looks kind of anti-aliased, like they weren't. What's going on with that? Get rid of that. Yeah, when it makes a copy of it, boundaries are all messed up. What is this program doing? Here, let's just export. I'm gonna do this in my janky program. It's gotten, wait, okay, yeah, that makes sense, because it never really had, but we can drag this down here, we can fill the background, make a new layer, grab that color. Oh, the boy's here. What up, big guy? I'm just gonna do a little bit of airbrushing to like hide these like boundaries a little bit. I think that's like good enough. Cool. So now we can just export a PNG. Zip, zip, zip. Always T. Come back here to Maya. Where did Maya go? Oh, did I minimize it? No, I closed it. What a maniac I am. You got fuzz on you, buddy. Okay, so what's about to happen is I'm going to swap this texture with the new inner ring texture. And it's going to look all messed up. Surprisingly less messed up than I would have expected. Something's weird. That should be totally broken. Instead it doesn't look broken at all. What happened? Oh, I wonder if there's like an emissive, if it's got like an emissive channel as well. Let's see. Actually, what we can do is we can use a thing called the file reference editor. Or the file path editor. And we can just like say like, hey, this file, I'm going to point you in a new place. And anything using this file should use the new thing. Oh, I see. This is even weirder than I thought. This is using like an external material, which is still sitting in my downloads folder. So you know what? We're just going to do a new material. We're going to go to color. We're going to say it's a file. The file is the new image we just made. So now we should be able to go to the UV editor. I wonder why we're not seeing the texture in here. Usually you can see the texture in the UV editor. What's going on? There we go. Still want to know why I'm not seeing it in here though. There it is. Great. Cool. So, got the new texture, and then now we should be able to scroll. Some of the faces are backwards though, where the top face is mirrored. Yes, the top face, or I guess it's every quarter turn is mirrored. So we need to fix that. I think what I'm gonna do is, this is what I mean, by the way, where like you can get assets from like generic sites on the internet, but to actually use them, you need to do surgery. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna select vertices. We're gonna basically just isolate one corner, like 1/4. And now we're gonna duplicate it. So we can say duplicate special. And then we want to duplicate it around. This looks kind of strange. It's oriented strangely, but I think it's basically going to be around the green, the y-axis. So we're going to go around the y-axis 3 times. That was totally wrong. Undo. No. Let's mute some of these other programs. There we go. So now duplicate special, 90 degrees around the z-axis 3 times. There we go. So now we've reproduced the ring, but crucially, now they should just all go around as we scroll that texture. So let's verify that. Window, modeling editors, UV, select UVs. So when we go, they all go around. Now it kind of sucks, they kind of dim as they go because it's passing, I guess because, yeah, it's like when we're going across here, it's like they're a little bit shorter. But that's fine. I mean, it'll just seem like they're kind of like as it goes. But this seems pretty good. And like, by the way, the reason I'm doing this instead of rotating the object itself is that it's usually better to like leave objects alone, especially if they have collision, because then the game engine doesn't need to recalculate its collision. You don't need to think about like, oh, if I'm touching it, am I gonna like pick up momentum from it or whatever. Like, it's just the object is stationary. It's just its material is moving, and that like material movement is just totally on the GPU, so it's like a lot faster. Anyway, just out of curiosity, what happens if I do that? Yeah, this like distorts it if we're not, right? Yeah, I think these weren't like just pure boxes to begin with, because the original artist was being conscientious about making sure that there was the least amount of distortion in this material, and because these faces, if you look at them, are actually whatchamacallit, like they're actually bow tie shaped in the world, and so we wanted it to be bow tie shaped in texture space. So that makes sense. That just means that we're going to have this little bug as they go around, where they seem to get a little strange halfway through and then be fine again. It's entirely possible that this is going to look bad and then I'll just like revert it all, but like let's just try this out for now. So I'm going to say save as jump gate inner ring new texture, and let's actually combine all these meshes. Get rid of the history. And then we can just export this. So. Come back into the game engine. Now I'm gonna re-import this with a new file, which is gonna make the material look wrong, but that's to be expected. So there we go. You see the texture coordinates are all different, so this all got messed up. But we can come in here and import that new texture. And make a new material for it. Material, jump gate, inner ring, scroll. Okay, so we've got the new inner ring here with this new material. This is a bit brighter because I'm not using a separate emissive and diffuse. I kind of just plugged it into both. So it's getting some like emissive, that's fine. This is just like making sure it works. So then actually, this isn't gonna work, is it? Because I need this material to not be affected, but this material to be affected. So it's like I need two materials. Kind of messed up, right? Well, I think it's fine if like it's just maybe just black on this outside. Let's just not think about it for now. Let's see if this even looks okay, and if this looks okay, then I'll come up with a different treatment for this backside. I might just make it black. So here's version 1. You can see what's happening is I'm just scrolling through that texture, so it's going like past the bottom. We only want it to scroll so far and then like jump back up, right? So the amount that we add in here, we need to take it mod. Navigating in this little window kind of sucks. But you can see it's like scrolling this section there, which is what I was afraid of. But for the main part, it seems as though it's working, although it looks weird. What does that look like when we get out here in the world? Looks bad, right? Is it just my tuning of this value? No, I think it like actually is just... Here, let's go back to our texture. I think like all this gobbledygook could be let's just do black and see what happens. Black out this as well. Okay, even with that, this still looks funky. There's like a discontinuity. Here, let me slow it down. We'll go like 10% of the speed, and we can see, yeah. So what's happening is like, it starts to go through, but then it doesn't match here. Let's look back at our UVs. So it's going and then yeah, what's happening is this side and this side just aren't matching. Wonder if we make this rectangular, how much does that distort this? Not that much, I don't think. Okay, so then we can this, export it. Re-import this. Yeah, now it's going around almost nicely. I think this value might be a little wrong. This looks like the right value, although there's still... Yeah, the very bottom, it's got this like angle, so it's like kind of cut off. I wonder if what we can do is... Now we've added some like padding around it so that we won't go a little too far past the end of it. Still like not great. It's got like a discontinuity. It's like they're just not, like they just need to be smudged in a little bit. You know what? We spent like a whole hour on just getting this thing going. And it's not even what I wanted to be working on. So I messed up. So you know what? We're gonna revert this. And we're gonna get rid of these for now. And I'll just do the thing that I said earlier you shouldn't do, and I'm just gonna have this rotate. So it's rotating around its x-axis. There we go. Booger girl says cat. It's true. It's my cat. The boy. His name is the boy. We also have an elder cat, Batty, but she doesn't hang out with me in the office. Anyway, let's go ahead and do the thing that I said I was going to do at the start of this stream. Set this up for realsies. So we'll make like a... How is this set up in my spline test scene? We can just grab the like spline test as a starter, right? BP Arena Spline. Look at all this scripting I did. The most important thing is it's an arena spline and it has a spline component. So let's go to props. Got a new one. Arena spline. Call it BP deep. Or we'll call it like space warp spline. Oh, it's this way. Nope, I parented the wrong thing. go. Spline works. We're on the spline. May not be obvious we're on the spline because you can't see it. Let me try and render it. Let's look at Arena Spline and like a mesh that was all around it. Let's start with that. What's happening? I'm crashing something. The game crashed. Welcome to the Unreal Engine experience. Or are we still going? No, we're still going. Where is it? Why can't I, Windows unresponsive. Okay. Da-ba-da-ba-da. Here's Arena Spline. Here's Space Warp Spline. So what we want is to add a procedural mesh. I'm gonna the Arena Spline had this like construction script. So now back here in our level, you can see it actually makes like a tube. For the like rail shooter section. I don't actually like that. Do I have like a better done material here that I can put on there for now? I don't know. Whatever. And so let's see. Oh, we're frozen. Oh, there we are. Oh, Dag, you slammed that one key so hard in my ears. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Here, do I need to take my microphone down? What is happening now? Oh, I see. The my supersonic movement mode for this character doesn't actually handle splines very well. Or at all. So that's some code I need to add. I'll add that after the stream. But anyway, there's a target speed for each of the splines. Since this is like a space warp, let's make it like really fast.
And remember,
So here we go. We're cruising. Difference to make it more of a roller coaster. And then let's grab from that level we were looking at earlier. Warp instance. So that's M warp inst 2 is the material. Ooh, that was way too zoomed out. What happens if I just apply that material? I think that material is supposed to be on like a cone shape. But let's see what happens when we just apply it to a tube. Yeah, you can see there's a bunch of glitches of those like rings and stuff. Also, it's like super stretched out. I think it's also grabbing like the vertex color from the particle system to color them. So that's all pretty weird looking, but I think we can like reference those to see how those materials are working, and then maybe try and make our own version of it. Yeah, this isn't how we would actually want the game to look. Little booger girl says, it hurts my eyes. That's part of when you're kind of like putting these special effects together. Everything kind of looks messed up while it's in progress. So let's see. They have... Here's their material. So you can see how their material works is it's basically got a texture scroll, but then it's also got this like at the full UV like a non-scrolling section. So if we then look at like warp 2, this one seems to only be using the scrolling parts though. I wonder if we took this and like duped it into our new folder here. scaled it way down. Yeah, we can do a better material than this. But like, if it's like... I think this effect is starting to look better. We made sure... Oh, and it's got a speed parameter. What's that do? Slows it down. Great. Okay, so let's take the shader that's driving this and let's add some more parameters to it so that we can control like the color and the alpha. You can see in the distance here, it looks kind of funky where it overlaps itself, where sometimes it's drawing it in the wrong order. That's just like a sort of common, yeah, you can really see it here. That's a problem with ordinary translucent materials because Unreal uses a thing called a deferred render, which means it like doesn't sort them correctly. But I think the general answer that we can do in ours is that there's a blend mode called additive, which you can use for glowing objects, and additive materials, it doesn't matter the order that you draw them, they just boop, boop, boop. It's like A plus B is equal to B plus A, so it's totally commutes and it's fine. But let's just at least see, just as like an initial test. Yeah, this is kind of cool. And I can actually as an override, come in here and ask this to be additive. Whoop, that was the wrong one. We want to look at this one. Say, go additive. It still looks a little funky because you can see it in the distance there. I wonder if what we really need is to like only plot the tunnel around you and not like the stuff in the distance, or like at least check like where you are in the tunnel and then modulate the brightness or the opacity. But what happens if we make this just like way faster? Let's double the speed. Zoom in on here. Whoa, whoa, we're really zipping now. Okay, going this fast actually interferes with the horizontal movement, I think. Like way too much. So we're gonna have to change that. just take that speed back down. That's 4,000 fuel. Retrospector, you double the speed of the texture to hyperspeed more. Yeah, I could do that. I'm mostly thinking right now about like how it feels to go left and right. I'm like considering whether I need to change my input model. Because what happens right now is that like as you press up, down, left, right, it's like there's like a lot of things going on. It's like really just controlling your angle, but like I may need to have like a much shallower angle if you're going really fast, or maybe I just need to like have totally separate like down the tube and up, down, left, right movement, even though that's not how you think about flying. You think about flying as orienting the ship and not like doing these 2 dimensions, but maybe that makes for like better gameplay. Zoop, and then we hit the end of it. I need an easier way to zip around this scene, but out of like really crazy curiosity, I do wonder if it was going in the other direction. So that makes more like logical sense as like a warp, right? That it's like carrying you along and not like going in the other direction. But it does feel like you're going backwards now. So I think it has to be going the other way. Another way to affect it is here we can like scale it up, like actually make the extents bigger. See, when the extents are bigger, like how fast it feels to like go from the top to the bottom. It feels slower because it just takes you longer to get up and down. Oh, excuse me. Also kind of sucks that this material, it doesn't take into account how long the tube is. So like every time I make the tube longer, it just stretches out. So I'm just making like a mental list of what we want to do. Instead of just using this material directly, what we'll do when we create our own material, let's just go ahead and do that. So we'll make our own material, call it M space warp. Excuse me. And we'll grab this warp texture. We'll drag that in here. We're going to say that this material is surface, additive, unlit. We'll also say two-sided. So then I'll just plug the R channel in. Texture coordinate. Breakout flow 2 components. There we go. Now we've got it scrolling like the other one did, but we can add, now we can say multiply vector parameter. We can call this paint color. We can just say color. Let's pick like 50% gray by default. Okay, so here we go. Shrink it down there a little bit. Grow it here a little bit. Cool. so here's their warp. They take scale, they immediately multiply the texture by scale, so we should probably do something like that. And they just use this panner node, I guess. I wonder if you create panning or moving textures, shows you according to time input. I think it's fine what we were already doing. I guess maybe this one just handles the wraparound. Anyway, yeah, let's actually just do exactly what they're doing. I think their solution is smarter than mine. Scale X, scale Y, speed. Can add a depth fade on this. So I just put like a depth fade on this. I'm changing, every time I add a number 0, it makes the depth fade 10 times longer. But you can see now we can only see like so far into the future. We can't see like the whole spline. I still don't love that it I wish that there was I wish we didn't have to hand tune the scale of it every time I change the length of a tube. Anyway, let's play with this color. Let's get something more fun, like yellow. Oh, you know what? I think Spotify went off the DMCA list a while ago. I wonder if parts of this are going to be hidden. Let's find a new playlist. There we go. Another interesting consequence of going on the tunnel so fast is that bullets are not also going fast. If I make it too fast, we'll fall behind the bullets. I think the bullets should also be picking up the speed of the tube that you're in. Probably. Or at least maybe we make that like an additional property of the tube, how much speed to add to bullets. Local John says, came from Twitter, this looks dope. Hey, thanks man. Yeah, this has been kind of a chill one. I've been a little like unstructured on this stream because we kind of have this idea of making like a... Here, I'm gonna change to my see like enter into like a warp tunnel, and once you do that, now the left stick controls are doing your up, down, left, right, and then your right stick or your mouse controls just like totally independently control your thing. So we added this tube around it, I'm thinking for the tube, I've been thinking about how to handle rendering this in a way where like the because right now this is just like a texture, and so every time I make the tube longer, everything gets stretched out, and then I have to modify the material. I think maybe one way to do it is like we constantly retopo the tube. I mean, it is like a procedural mesh. We could make it like follow along with you, and then it's always going to have like constant textures, but we still need to make sure that the texture wraps properly, which might be difficult. I suppose the other way to do it is just when we make this, instead of having the UVs go from 0 to 1, we can have the UVs go up to the length of it. That'll work, right? Like if you have longer tubes, the UVs will just take longer. I need to think about it. But this playlist that I switched to is really something else, huh? I need to find lo-fi beats. Royalty-free lo-fi. No copyright. Love it. Anyway. Nope, didn't want to select that. Now let me see, maybe we can... further down the tube. Okay, I think the thing, yeah, the tube plotting thing here is like a native function that I wrote. Local John asks, how long have y'all been working on this game for? I've been working on it for about a year. It was, but like, just on nights and weekends, because for a long time I still had a day job, and it's only recently that I've switched over to just doing part-time freelancing to make more time to actually work on this game. And we're prepping, I'd mentioned this earlier, but we're prepping to go to GDC in 2 weeks and sort of pitch for collaborators. So hopefully coming out of that we can have more of like a plan of like how big can this game get and how long will it take us like to actually sort of get it on Steam and stuff. So yeah. So plot tunnel. So let's, don't want to save that one. I don't want to save anything that's in the third-party folder, but I will save all those. So what I'm going to do is, in this plot tunnel function, I'm going to add a new parameter. It is max v. after so this is like a scratch pad in which I like plot the mesh just like on the CPU, and then this create mesh section is where we actually send it to the graphics card, or at least we send it to Unreal's internal bookkeeping that eventually makes it to the graphics card. But in between those 2 points, we want to say scratch dot, I want to say for each UV in the scratch UVs, we'll say UV dot V times equals max V. So here we're just scaling the V coordinates of the texture. So instead of going from 0 to 1, it'll go from 0 to max V. And of course I set 1 as the default. So by default this function still works the same, but now when we plot the tube, which is the mesh that is sort of the surface that those effects are being rendered on, hopefully I can basically just like take the length of the tube, you know, clamp that, snap that to like an integer value. Uh-oh, what does this say? V is not a member of UV. Oh, whoops, I meant to say UV.Y. We're always spawning at the origin in this scene. So flying back out to our warp tube now. So you can see in code, I just added this max V parameter. So that means in the scripting interface, we now have max V. So I can take the spline and say get spline length. We can divide it by a standard segment length. We'll say we'll add 1 V to the texture for every like 10 meters in like actual distance along the spline. And I wrote that 10 meters as 1,000 because Unreal uses centimeters for all its coordinates. So the spline length is in centimeters. So divide it by 1,000, yeah, 1,000 centimeters, that'll give me every 10 meters. And then we want to just do the seal function, which basically means round it up. So if, you know, the result of this is 2.5, this will round it up to 3 because I want to have like an integer value on the end. And then we can plug that into max V. Now that's, so you see now before the texture going from 0 to 1, now it's like this huge number, right? Let's take this, let's actually make this bigger. Let's do it every 100, right? So now what we need to do in our material is, I will pull this to the side here so that we can see the changes in the world. But so our scale Y, we now need to take that number down to compensate. And then, yeah, our speed should be fine, right? This is just, so if what I did makes sense, then what I should be able to do is like double the length of this tube, and it shouldn't cause this texture to get stretched out. So let's just verify that that's what's happening. So if I grab the end here, and we just like make this like way longer, like way longer. Even if I go back to the perspective camera, it still basically looks the same. So And maybe, I think maybe 100 meters was, let's change that to 50. And then in our, in our material instance here, we can keep tweaking this number to get this feeling good. Okay, so that makes me feel a bit better. So, to confirm all the stuff we did to this original material, like, we made it additive so that we don't get any, like, rendering artifacts. We also gave it a color, like a tint controller, so that it's not always bright white. We can make it different tints and different intensities. We added a depth fade so that you don't see the whole tube. You only see the tube that's like right in front of you, and you can see it's like fading in as you go. And then that tube also acts as a collider, so you can see we can like kind of rub against the side of it. I do wonder how many vertices are in there though. Let's look at it in wireframe view. It's pretty dense with geometry. I don't think we actually need that much geometry. So I wonder if we put like a vertex every 25 meters, if we make it like a lot more low resolution, does that? Oh, that does interfere with the rendering though. This like very clearly looks bad now. Yeah, so like my only concern is if this tube is like really, really long, that like we're just gonna have so much geometry on it. So, and like also all of this geometry is not just render geometry, it has to be converted into physics geometry as well, in order for it to act as like a wall that you crash into. So like that's also just like a tremendous amount of like collision geometry. So just making like a mental note of like things to update. I think the collision geometry will probably be like a lot more low resolution, and it won't be the same mesh as the render geometry. And then the render geometry will be higher resolution, but like instead of tessellating the whole tunnel, I think we're only going to tessellate a segment around you, and like maybe we retessellate it as you're like going along the spline, so that we only actually have a render mesh that's in your local neighborhood that you can actually see, and we don't have like a huge render mesh that like covers like this whole thing all the way to infinity, because like I imagine these warp tubes, especially if you're moving really fast, are going to get kind of large. So let's see. Anyway, I was speculating earlier that if we made these tubes too fast, you might outrun your bullets. I want to test if that is true, and if I need to do a thing where it also speeds up your bullets. So if we make this 8,000... Whoa, what happened? Oh, that was the radius. Whoops. Going back to the speed, if we made the speed like 9999, we got in here, we're going to take off, we're going really fast, it's interfering with the horizontal control, and our bullets are falling behind us. So that's just two tasks which I think I'm going to work on like after this stream is over. Like, one is just to make sure that when you go really fast, it doesn't interfere with your left-right movement. I think the left-right movement should be based on like how much time does it take you to get from the left-hand side of the screen to the right-hand side of the screen, and not just I'm angling the player, right? And then like we can put those speeds like in here where it's like, oh, here's your target speed along the spline, and here's your target speed perpendicular to the spline when you're on this spline. And I want to be able to tune those differently for different splines, so that like if we have a spline where you're flying through a canyon, you have a certain type of speed, but when you're flying through like a warp zone, you have this like crazy warp speed. And then the other thing is that when you're being carried along, like when you're like in the warp and you like your speed is coming from the spline, that extra speed gets like added into your bullets, so that you never outrace your bullets. Like if my bullets are going at 10 meters per second and I'm going at 20 meters per second, I should actually be shooting those bullets at 30 meters per second. That has the advantage that the bullets always come out in front of you. It does have the disadvantage though, where like if I'm leading shots, like if you're aiming at an enemy and it's like auto-targeting, so you don't have the ability to like fine-tune it, like we want to sort of shoot the targets like slightly in front of them. So in those cases, we maybe want to ignore that speed and just hope that it comes from the shot leading. That'll be a tricky one. So I'll need to think about that a little bit more offline. But I'm feeling pretty good about like just like lazy Friday afternoon, like just getting started on like having a warp zone effect. Other than those like sort of like annoying game programming questions, I think the next thing to do then is to integrate this spline with this like asteroid scattering spline, so that we can also like spawn some asteroids along the warp spline maybe. So anyway, it's getting pretty late and I kind of skipped lunch today, so I want to take care of that. But thanks for watching. As always, we do this like every Friday from 2 to 4 Pacific time. So that's what, like 5 to 7 Eastern Standard Time. You can follow me on Twitter at ZooLupus. Maybe new people found this feed through that, but we also have a feed, you know, like it says in the bottom corner, Tiny Galactic. You can check at Tiny Galactic on Twitter. That's the like official feed, not just for like me kind of faffing around on Twitter, but like for the actual project. That's where we put official announcements and stuff. That's also where the link to the Discord is. And if you want to like follow along there, I just sort of post regular dev updates, and there's also an AMA thread if you have any questions about it. So yeah, thanks for hanging out, and see everybody next week. Bye.